sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
Sinners and saints and bitches and taints. How the hell are y'all doing tonight? You feeling well? You feeling sexy? You feeling pussy? You feeling horny? I hope you are if you want to be. Are you sick of me saying that? I'm guessing you probably are. Or maybe it makes you laugh every week. Kind of hope it does both. Well, I don't want you to get sick of it, but I have a feeling a lot of people are sick of me. You know, this is just a thought here, and bear with me for a second. When I go into an elevator and I can literally feel my eyes melting from the powerful odor of cologne or perfume, and then when the elevator doors open, I can still track the smell down a hallway, up a flight of stairs, around a corner into another room. I submit to you that if you are leaving a contrail of cologne and perfume, you're wearing too much. I swear to God, if you were a criminal on the run from the police, they wouldn't have to chase you. All they'd have to do is follow your scent. Even a bloodhound would say, bitch, this is easy. Goddamn, you can do it yourself. You don't need me. And when this happened, the discussion with friends turned on trying to come up with a reason why people would do that. Now, I know in the 80s, it was a big deal to have an overpowering scent of cologne and hairspray. But that has long since passed. And you have to wonder, is there a phobia there? What is the reason why a person would practically drown themselves in cologne or perfume? It's been my experience as of late, the ones that I'm aware of that are doing it are smokers. And perhaps because they smoke, maybe they can't tell. Maybe their sense of smell is off and they don't realize how much they're putting on, even though how could you not realize when you see physically when you're putting it on versus what you're smelling, but I don't know. Or is it just an effort to cover up the smell of smoke on their clothes and their body? Isn't it funny how there are some smokers who know how to smoke and never get the smell on them? And there are others who will go out to take a smoke break and come back smelling like a chimney. I've always found that interesting too. The third possibility that a lot of my friends thought was the main possibility or probability was that people who wear an overwhelming amount of cologne are really just trying to get attention. Maybe it is a high-end cologne and they're wanting to impress everybody with it, even though to me, when I smell, if I can smell it that strongly, it smells more like alcohol than it does a nice scent. So in this discussion, when the majority of people felt, probably in a cynical way, that it's just someone trying to get attention, that subject come up. What do we do? And why do we do things just for attention? What was the girl whose mother pretended that she had all these illnesses and convinced her that she was sick when she really wasn't? Gypsy Rose Blanchard. That was her name. Goddamn, she killed her mother with the help of the boyfriend over all that shit. She was on every news program around the world when that happened. But anyway, there's a condition where people do that just for the attention. They will make themselves sick for the sympathy. I always feel like social media, a lot of times, people will post very private, very personal things about themselves, about their family. And maybe that's sometimes the only way they can communicate with other family members. But I feel like sometimes that I'm imposing, that I'm like some busybody that's got the door cracked open and trying to eavesdrop on these real life dramas. Maybe that's my argument with social media in the first place. It feels like it's toxic. I mean, Twitter used to be one of my favorite social media platforms, and now all it is fucking Nazis, well, and porn, which I do enjoy. There's some really good hot gay porn on Twitter. I'll never call it X, even though XXX might be the more appropriate name for it now. How is that fulfilling to garner attention in ways that could be perceived as negative? Now, I have friends that I absolutely love, and we will share things about our lives, but they stay within that circle and they'll never leave that circle of friends. And I really appreciate that when you have someone who you can confide in when you need to. And all of us can be drama queens, can't we? God knows I can. I mean, my God, you all listen to Alan After Dark. Obviously, I'm a drama queen sometimes. But I guess when you get down to brass tacks, everything we do is to get attention, isn't it? The kind of clothes we wear, the kind of car we drive, the trips we go on, the underwear, the type of underwear we wear, the brand name, the brand name of our shoes, our jeans, our clothes, Armani, Calvin Klein, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, does that kind of attention really reward us? I guess for some it does. For me, it doesn't. I'm not going to drive one of these top model cars, a Lamborghini, or one of these god-awful, ugly Teslas. Because the first thing I think of when I see them is like, oh my God, they've spent $60, $70, $80, or $90,000 for that damn thing. Yes, I believe in saving the environment, but there are other electric vehicles that are much cheaper and appear to be better quality than Teslas. So sometimes I wonder if we think we're impressing someone and getting that attention, but maybe the attention is not necessarily positive. But then again, there's some people, as long as they're getting attention, whether it be positive or negative, they're just happy with the attention. And maybe that's the ones who wear enough cologne that it could be mistaken for mace. I am more repulsed by someone who tries to impress me, especially if they act like that they have a lot of money. That just, it doesn't impress me at all. It doesn't impress, I don't think, a lot of people that you're bragging about how much money you have by what you're spending it on and such. Do you know why I wear Calvin Klein underwear?
Aw, why?
Because for me, it is the most comfortable underwear that I've ever worn. Pure and simple, that's the reason. I'm not wearing it to impress anybody. I don't care if my waistband peeks out and people see the name Calvin Klein. I don't think people look at Calvin Klein necessarily as a top brand anymore. It feels like your everyday kind of brand, especially in the underwear, but it is the most damn comfortable underwear that I've ever worn. Boy, that was a lot of words there for explaining that, wasn't it? Jesus. There was a guy that came in to the club the other night. Well, first of all, I had parked and I was walking into the club and he nearly run over me in his car. When it was that close, I did get a good look at him and I thought he was going to a different business nearby. So anyway, I go on in and John's there and he's got my drink poured and we're chatting a little, but he's still having to work and stock and do all kinds of stuff that a bartender has to do. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching television, some athletic event, enjoying my drink and waiting for my friends to come in. This guy that nearly ran over me comes in and I'm like, oh, I guess he was planning on coming here. He just didn't know where the entrance was, even though he saw me walking toward it right next to the pride flag that hangs outside. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm on one side of the bar. It's like a large L shape. And I'm on the one side, the narrow side that seats three. I'm sitting in the middle chair and there's one on each side of me. And then you have the long side of the bar that looks toward the wall. Where I'm sitting, I can see the front door and I can see a couple of TVs. If you sit on the long side of the bar, you can see several TV screens above the bar. Anyway, he comes in And I try not to like stare at anybody, especially right at the beginning of a night when there's only like me and maybe a couple of others there. So I'm watching the TV, even though out of the corner of my eye, I can see this guy coming in. And I'm always muttering and whispering under my breath, please don't come to this side. Please don't come over here. Please sit on the other side. Please, please, please. As I see him heading right toward me. So he comes to the corner of the bar and I'm like, oh fuck, he's going to sit right there beside me, even though there are 10 seats down through there that no one is sitting in. And he just goes, excuse me, are you saving those seats for friends? While it wasn't a lie, I wasn't exactly telling the truth. I said, yes, I have friends coming and they sit here, which is the truth. And he says, well, okay, I'll sit right here. And so he's sitting one seat over from that one, right at the corner of the bar. And he proceeds to continue to stare at me. John comes from the back. He's stocking inventory and things and comes up to him and says hi and asks him what he'd have. And he proceeds to go down the list. Do you have beer in a bottle for this price? And John's like, well, no, we don't have that price. It's this price. Oh, well, what about your mixed drinks, your well drinks? How much are they? Are these price? Are they this price? And John, of course, again, no, they're a little bit higher. They're this price. Well, if I get a soda and then just order shots of whatever liquor I want, would that be cheaper than that? And John was like, no, it would relatively be the same price. Well, what if I just got a soda? I was just like cracking up. I'm like, this guy is nitpicking everything that you can. Well, John finally got him settled with a drink and yada, yada, yada. And I must have said John's name out loud because this guy, he introduced himself. He says his name is, we'll say, Charles. Suddenly, he was calling John by name. And then he said, I think you go on cruises, so I'm thinking about going on that cruise you're going on. And John was like, okay, I don't know what cruise that you think I'm going on that you'd be going on. He mentioned the name of it, and I guess there's a series of cruises that are for gay men. And of course, John said, well, I don't do those. I don't do those cruises, and I don't take those because I'm going on these cruises to enjoy the locations, get some rest, and just have a good time, not necessarily there to swing naked from the door frames. And then this guy says, Charles says, well, maybe I'll go on that one with you too. And at this point, we're like, okay, this guy is acting like they're old friends or something. Customers started rolling in and he got a little bit busier, and that took the conversation away from him. And I was trying to stay on my phone and pretend like I wasn't interested in conversation. Then my friends started coming in and we started chatting and stuff, and he was still sitting there, and oh my God. And he started really going on and on about the old times at the clubs. And he was saying he went to this club and he went to that club. And I'm like, oh, well, if he went to that one, you know this person that used to perform there. No, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, okay. But if you went to that club when you said you did, there's no way you didn't know that that performer was there. She was the star of the show. Everybody knew her, but he didn't. Finally, after, I don't know, about an hour of agony of him interjecting himself with all these conversations we were having, he finally left. And one of my friends, he chuckled when he left. He said, boy, he was desperate for attention, wasn't he? His bragging about all the clubs and things he's gone to and all the people he knows fell kind of flat-footed when you called him out on it. And I'm like, yeah, I felt almost bad for him because it seems like he doesn't have any friends and he just wanted some attention. But I really wasn't calling him out. I actually thought maybe he had gone to those clubs. And if he had gone to those clubs, I was actually interested in a conversation about them. Because that is history of our town. It's some of the things that are being forgotten by the younger generations. And I love when those subjects come up. But it took me 5 seconds to figure out that when he didn't know this specific performer, that he really probably didn't go to that club Or if he did, it must have been on off days, like a Monday or a Tuesday, when none of the performers were there, even though the entranceway was plastered with their posters and their show times and everything. I just feel like it's hard, even if you weren't into drag. At those times, we all knew who the stars were in town. And there were a few celebrities that performed drag in this town. I don't know. Sometimes I inadvertently embarrass somebody, and I really didn't mean to, but I have to say I was a bit relieved. I think we all were, that he decided to head on out. You know, there's always that, there's some people that can just make you uncomfortable. They, I'm sure, don't mean to, but sometimes it just doesn't feel so natural. And I've had total strangers sit beside me, and we struck up a conversation, and we wind up talking for hours and having a good, fun, enjoyable time, just chatting about old times and fun adventures and things. It's the personality of the person, isn't it? Honestly. Because I have an expression on my face that I usually pull out when I'm trying to say, don't fuck with me. I don't want to talk. I don't want you to look at me or say a damn word. And sometimes that look comes out and it's totally unintentional. But I've said it before. If you don't want attention, the best way to do that is to try to get attention, because people will start ignoring you left and right. Like when I've gone into a bar out of town, and I will make a little conversation with the bartender, but usually I'll just sit there to myself and getting a feel for a place. And it does seem like if you are a quiet one, that eventually somebody will want to engage in conversation with you. Or, well, in my case though, when you're uglier than homemade sin, it's kind of hard to get somebody to say hi to you.
Wait, what?
See, there is an upside sometimes to being ugly. You don't have to deal with all these assholes harassing you all the time. Well, not all the time, just sometimes. Speaking of assholes desperate for attention, did you all hear about Kyle Rittenhouse? What happened to him on social media? Now, I hate even bringing up that motherfucker's name, but for those who may not know, you can look him up. You can Google Kyle Rittenhouse and see all about him. But basically, during the George Floyd protest, his mama drove him across state lines to a city where there were protests. He went in pretending to be like an EMT, but he had a gun, and he wound up shooting and killing 2 people. He was acquitted of that thanks to a judge who was so partisan, he ensured Kyle Rittenhouse would be acquitted by a jury. Well, it hasn't gone so well for him since then. Over the past couple of weeks, the right-wing MAGAs have turned on their little temporary icon of gun rights and murder. Somehow, I think it started on Twitter. There were pictures being shared of a woman, and they were saying that Kyle Rittenhouse really was a woman and is a transgender male.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, what?
And it went viral like a wildfire in California almost right away. And all those that were supporting him and his so-called representation of the Second Amendment and gun rights now are bashing him left and right as a fraud, as really a transgender male, a woman trying to be a man. So it just goes to show you once again that for the right-wingers, one day you're a hero, the next day you're a villain. They use you when it's to their benefit and will cast you aside when you're not a benefit to them. The irony is that apparently none of it's true. It's just a woman that looks like Kyle Rittenhouse. He's not transgender, but it really is something to see them treat him this way. He shot and killed 2 people, was acquitted, and he was a hero. Now a rumor that he's transgender gets out there and goes viral. Suddenly he's the devil herself, apparently. Holla. Well, if I'm sounding vindictive, You know what? As far as feeling this kind of heat, the wrath of the anti-trans people in the Republican Party, he deserves it. Wow. Maybe that was a curse from him right there. Jesus. Is that you, Kyle? Did you hear me talking about you? Or should I call you Kylie? What's really tragic about that whole thing is that me saying Kyle or Kylie, for me, and for most of us, that doesn't matter. But for the right-wingers, that's an absolute insult. That is talking about a man as if he was a woman. And women are so maligned and demeaned in the Republican Party. They would look at a transgender person connected to females as a weakness, as less than. It's one of the things that I despise most about the Republicans, the Nazis, the fuckfaces, the assholes. They equate weakness with being a female. We all fucking know better than that, especially those of us from the South. I promise you, almost all of us were raised by strong women, strong mothers, strong grandmothers who could take on anybody that they wanted to. They were fearless badasses and should be given the respect that any man would get. Honestly, you think because you got a dick that you got a piece of meat swinging between your legs, is you're supposed to be somehow elevated like king of the hill or whatever? Get over yourself. Talk about self-aggrandizing. You're better because you're a male? Jesus. And we have Algerian boxer Iman Khalif, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, who just won the gold medal in boxing in the Olympics. How the conservatives, these right-wing fanatics, insisted that she must be a man because of the way she looked and her abilities, not even trying to do any research or confirming what they're saying. They just ran with it. That she was so good in the way she looked that there's no way that she could be a woman. It just is absolute delusion, is it not? The obsession that right-wingers around the world, conservatives, Republicans, Tories, whoever, Nazis, their obsession with what's between our legs. Shit. I mean, do they really have nothing else to worry about in the world? Their lives are so perfect that all they can do is obsess over anybody who's different than them? God, somebody give me a pill or something. Thank you for listening to this episode of Alan After Dark. I am so glad I got all that off my chest. I hope you had fun, were entertained, or pissed off, or all the above. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon. Thank you.